I was a party girl, right? My life consisted of living for the moment, living for the party lifestyle. I would say I was an atheist because I didn't grow up knowing God or having any of that. They said to me, you can't go in. And I was like, what do you mean? Like, I can't go in, I'm his daughter. And they went, he's been stabbed.
Assalamu alaikum, brothers and sisters. Today I spoke to Sister Aysha Mercedes. We talked about reverts and what they need from us as people born into Muslim families. And we also talked about healing from childhood trauma. Hope you enjoy the episode. Assalamu alaikum, Sister Aysha.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Really lovely to be here and meet you again.
Yes, you too. I mean, we don't know each other very well, so I think it's a really nice opportunity for us to get to know each other. Many of our brothers and sisters might feel like they've seen you somewhere before, and if they do think that, it's probably that they've seen you on a very viral clip or video that was going all over around the internet, where, from what I remember, Mufti Menk was meeting your mum.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's watch the video with your mum meeting Mufti Menk. And your mum is not a Muslim, right?
She's not a Muslim.
Okay, so let's...
Oh my God. Oh my God.
She's like
Come
shocked.
across Mufti Menk. You just popped up. I get a lot of things, but because of you.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Assalamu alaikum.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
Amazing. Nice to see you, man. Mashallah.
Oh my God.
I brought you something. It's small. I don't know how health fanatic you are, but this is some chocolate.
He's just so funny, like in everything that he does. There's just that little bit of humour.
So open-minded and
wise.
yeah, that's it. Yeah, how do you get like that?
Good question. Oh, that is amazing. I love that. And so your video went viral. It was a heartwarming moment. Tell us the story behind what happened. How is a mum from Essex, right? Who's not a Muslim, excited about Mufti Menk and listening to Mufti Menk?
Yeah, it's a funny story actually, because I've been Muslim for about 15 years. Mum's never really shown any sort of interest in becoming a Muslim or sort of asking questions. She's very open-minded. And so she's very happy that I'm happy. And it's kind of like, you know, that's your decision and I'm happy and I support you. But there's never sort of been anything like that she said that she's interested or she's questioning. She'll probably kill me for saying this, but she does have a little anger issue with road rage, like a lot of people. And she was in the car. She was dropping my brother somewhere. My little brother's about 5 years younger than me. And she got into a bit of road rage. And from that day, my brother didn't get back in the car again. So she was online, I guess, looking for something to, why am I, how do I control my anger?
All right.
And due to like her algorithm, probably on Facebook, crossing over with mine, she came across Mufti Menk and he was talking about controlling your anger.
Right.
And she is quite a humorous person. She's quite jokey. So when she saw his humour and she saw the anger, she watched it and then she just, from there, she just really liked his messaging, the way that he spoke about the religion, but also the fact that he incorporated humour in it. And then she just would not stop going on about him.
Okay.
It was like every time that I went to see her, she would, and then she started sending me videos of Mufti Menk as well.
So one video led to another and then...
Yeah. And on my social media, I started posting. I was secretly filming her. I think some of the time she knew and some of the time she didn't. So I was secretly filming her and I was tagging Mufti Menk in it as well. And and then good friend of mine, Naima Aysha, she knows his family and everything. So she contacted him and said, oh, look, you know, there's a Reverts sister, Aysha Mercedes. Her mum's like really interested in your videos. She's like fascinated by everything you say. And she was kind of hoping that he'd do like a video response to her.
Yeah.
And he suggested that he will come and visit us at my mum's house. But my mum's got a dog. So that wouldn't have, this dog is out of control. So that wouldn't have gone down very well. So Naima suggested we use her mum's house, who I'm very close with her mum. We've got a really good bond.
Her mum is in the video, right?
Her mum is in the video,
Yeah,
and
I've
her
seen
brother,
her,
and her brother's wife.
And it's her voice. Is that her voice?
Yeah,
Yeah.
literally.
Okay, yeah.
But yeah, we have a close relationship. So Qadar Allah, it worked out really, really well. I had to tell a little Porky. I said to Mum that I'm going to hospital because I have a lot of health issues, so it wasn't not believable. So I said that I'm going.
And you do go to the hospital.
I do go to the hospital, and I actually did go to the
Yeah.
hospital. I think a couple of weeks later, I actually was in the hospital.
Yeah.
So
okay.
it wasn't a complete lie, but I really wanted it to be a surprise. So we arranged with Mufti Menk for him to surprise her. It was his idea. He said that he saw something special in her.
Oh.
He said that he actually made a joke saying, I wouldn't normally waste my time, you know, because he's got millions of people requesting him. But he saw something unique. And it really was the most beautiful thing. She was so surprised, like genuinely, and so happy. And she got to ask him, he sort of come in, as you can see on the video, and she got to ask him lots of questions about religion and just about how he manages to like talk about the religion without it feeling like it's being forced or without it preaching and all of that kind of thing. So
It's true.
it was beautiful, honestly.
And so what happened after that? After what we've just seen in that clip?
So after that, there was questions.
Okay,
I have got the videos in my YouTube
Yeah.
where Mum's asking him questions. And I think the question that's on there is how do you get so wise? Like, how do you put across Islam in a way that doesn't feel like I'm doing something wrong or I'm not doing something in the right way, etc., etc. And they just sat. It was like we just all kind of sat back. You know, I don't say anything at all, to be honest. I'm just completely silent. And they just had like, it was like a heart to heart. We was all drinking tea and stuff, and it just felt like, because Naima's family are like my family as well, so it just felt very, very, and even my mum felt comfortable, and I just think that was from Allah.
And how is she now?
She still talks about Mufti Menk all the time. She still says things like, honestly, he's such a nice man, and you know, and I think, and this is why it's so important to represent yourself, not just in what you say, but in the way that you say it. And I just love the fact that his personality and his sense of humour and his kindness, which has clearly come from his family, because he sent me videos of his dad and kind of he's grown up, you know, and he kind of embodies the character of a Muslim. And I think we can all learn like a lot from that. Like, it's not just about how much knowledge you have, although he has got knowledge, but it's also about your character and what you implement.
Right, and having the wisdom, right, to present it and explain it in a inclusive way, I think.
Yes, yeah.
That's
absolutely.
true, mashallah. So Aysha, tell us a little bit about yourself. What is it important for people to know about you to understand your journey? And also in the intro, I mentioned somatic healing. I don't know what that is. So I'm sure a lot of our listeners don't know what that is. Can you just talk about your own background and then about the link to that, please?
Yeah, I think it's important to know, because I seem to end up being part of bigger things. Like, for example, Mum and Mufti Menk. I actually now, when I'm speaking in the beginning, I have to mention, you may know me from my mum meeting Mufti Menk. So I mean, it's a beautiful thing, and you know, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guide my mother. I mean, but at the same time, what my intention is by now sort of being like having left Islam Channel and kind of going away from like presenting and hosting is my speciality of being a counselor, right? Of wanting to really put forward the like education around trauma and mental health within the Muslim community. And I don't see a lot of that, even when I was preparing my program and when I was doing my business course to kind of focus myself towards my niche of trauma. I didn't really see many people that were talking about trauma. It was kind of like people started and they shied away from it. And so I think my main point of being online and of spreading my message is a lot deeper than what I think people know me for. Okay. So it's quite a difficult transition to kind of go from, light, fluffy presenter and Mufti Menk to kind of like, actually what I really want to talk about is trauma, mental health, and how that affects specifically Muslims because it's brushed under the carpet.
So what does somatic healing mean? So
somatic healing is about the body. So the body holds trauma, right? So this will be like a new concept for a lot of people, in that we had thought that all of the trauma is in your head, but actually a lot of people are quite disconnected from their emotions, which actually are stored in the body. So if you've had a traumatic experience, which there's lots of different ways that you can be traumatized, I think there's a lot of assumptions around trauma is just abuse and kind of, being in war and things like that. But actually, it's not just about what happened to you. It's about what didn't happen for you. So the lack of love, the lack of validation, the lack of resources and things like that, which then develops into, I know it's sounding a bit complicated, but it develops into emotions that are stored in the body, normally around the sort of the chest area, the stomach area, and, things like tension and things like that. So the somatic therapy is designed to actually start to release that. And that's part of what I do with my ladies. It's not just about talking about it. It's also about, releasing it. And there's lots of ways that can be done.
Really? Wow. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Because things that aren't dealt with, things that aren't processed and
unresolved,
and resolved, they show up in other ways, right? In our lives. And I think actually, that we do have a sort of understanding, even Islamically, that, a person's demeanor, a person's background, it can show up on their face, on their, in just their whole aura, right? So can you share with us, like, what led you to somatic healing, and is it linked to your journey to Islam, or would you say they're two separate things?
Yeah, definitely. I think a lot of the time with therapists, when you're led towards being a therapist, a lot of the time it is because of your own journey. So for me, I grew up in what you would call a broken home. Mum and dad, I think mum and dad were only really, I don't actually, because my dad was in prison, right? So my dad was in prison when I was born. So straight away, I don't grow up in a conventional family, right? And then my mum had met my dad and they were together for a few years. And then what had happened is my mum discovered that my dad had schizophrenia. So after I was already born, I'd already come out into dysfunction, right, so to speak. And with schizophrenia, because it's like a mental health disorder, it's like a chemical imbalance in the brain. A lot of people don't realise that it's not present all the time. So you may sit with somebody and not even realise, you may not even realise that they're suffering. And I think that's with a lot of mental health disorders. People can mask and they can present. But yeah, one day she kind of discovered he was talking to the television and, and then he was sectioned under the Mental Health Act. So he did take medication in the first instance, but then stopped taking it. And then he became, he's passed away now, and he passed away as a Muslim. So I just want to kind of, I don't want to paint him out as like a really bad person, but it's important. And this is one of the things I say to my clients. This isn't about blame and shame. This is about acknowledging where you've come from and how it's affected who you are, and forgiveness and moving past it. But he was very unstable when he had what you'd call an episode, which meant that he would explode, and it was very scary. In fact, it was terrifying. And we spent a lot of my young life running away from him. Yeah, a lot of my young life having to literally leave everything behind and move to a new location because of his unpredictability. I said this on another podcast, but I think it's important to say that my mum used to sleep with a knife under her pillow. And she actually said to me one day, she said, and this was only recently because I didn't obviously know this as a child, that it kind of got to a point where she believed that he would kill her. And that's because schizophrenia can take you to places where you believe, from the paranoid side of things, where you believe someone's out to get you, you kind of react in relation to that because your brain's telling you, right, I need to get her before she gets me. So that was very scary. And then what happens, right, is the mother is a direct connection with the child. This is where trauma comes in. So if the mother's now stressed, the mother's now in a position of being in survival, having to run away, not being safe, this is proven to affect the child, to affect their development, to affect, the way that the child sees the world. Because as a child, you see the world through your mother, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely.
And then the importance of the father for a daughter. I mean, I'm sure I've heard you speak about, the importance and your father and things like that.
Definitely.
Your dad is your first love. He sets the standard, he sets the tone for how men treat you, right? And he instills that love in you, So for me, I didn't have that, right? So already I'm going into the world as I start to get older in a deficit, right? And then mum is in survival. Mum is trying to, she's now having to play the role of mother and father. She's now having to kind of look after me and my brother a bit later on down the line, but also, and so the nurturing side that women do have, that energy is focused on, we need to survive, we need to get by, we need to stay safe, So by the time I got to sort of a teenager, I had a lot of conflict, a lot of identity issues. We kind of say that when you get to a teenage age, that is when your identity is being built, because you're kind of coming out of being a child into adolescence. You're on the brink of sort of adulthood, and you can imagine, I've experienced running away multiple times. I've moved multiple times. I'm going into different areas, and the last time was that, I don't want to go too much into this, but I'm mixed race, I'm mixed heritage. So my mum's white and my dad was Jamaican. So you already kind of don't fit in with either side, right? So when I when I started secondary school, I was still in London, and I didn't really fit in there from the side of, it was a predominantly black school. And I was bullied, for being lighter skinned. And my mum said, don't tell your dad. And I did. And he just exploded. And it was really, really scary. Like it was terrifying. We were like in the middle of the street. So my mum was like, we need to go now. So we literally packed up in the middle of the night and left and moved to Essex. So yes, we're now safe. Yes, we're now in a position of we're away from my dad, but now there's a whole new set of problems. Now I'm going into a school being the only person of colour in an all-white school.
Oh.
So
And what upset your dad so much, do you think?
so he was annoyed that my mum hadn't told him.
So in a way, he was angry on your behalf that people
Yes.
were bullying you.
Yes, but exactly.
Yeah,
So he was angry on my behalf, but he was threatening my mum. And again, it's with mental health, the unpredictability around it is that we don't know how he's going to react. We don't know what's going to happen
After that, yeah.
after that,
Yes,
right?
okay.
And mum's terrified, I'm terrified. Yes, he could have calmed down. Yes, it might not have been as bad, but in that moment, again,
You have to make decisions.
you have to make decisions, and that was the decision. So, yeah, we moved in with my nan because my nan's from Essex and stuff. So I already had like a connection to the area. But then, you know, there's a new set of problems. Only person of colour, only brown person in the whole school. And that was difficult, not in as much as I was bullied. I mean, I was bullied a little bit, but it was more just I was not white. I did not fit in. I was not one of them. And I was their children, but I was made to know about it. So these are all instances of trauma. That was traumatic. You know, it was traumatic with my dad. It was traumatic, you know, my mum being in survival. It was traumatic going to, you know, predominantly black schools, traumatic going to a predominantly white school. So when we talk about trauma, a lot of my clients, when they come to me, they don't recognize these things as being trauma because it's their own lived experience where they just believe, oh, that's just how life was. And when they're experiencing things like anxiety, depression, they're getting very angry very quickly, very emotional, or completely disconnected from their emotions. It's only when we start working through and we start recognizing like what I did when I started my own trauma therapy, is that you say, oh, okay, so that's why I'm like this. That's why I'm completely shut off from my emotions, because I didn't have a space to be emotional. There wasn't time for that. You know, the time was, we need to get on, we need to survive. And you're looking at your mum, you know, I was looking at mum, you know, in survival and terrified of dad and trying her best. And as a child, you internalize that this is a lot for mum. You know, this is a lot for mum, even though you don't really understand it. So you can do a few things. You can either act out, which is what I did. I acted out. At every given moment, I was acting out. You know, like you'd say like the naughty kid, but obviously now kind of understanding what it means to be a naughty child. It's not just a naughty child. There's something behind that, you know, and that's what happened with me. I was acting out because I was in pain. I was acting out because I wasn't getting my emotional needs met, but I didn't know that. And I wouldn't have known that. So there was a lot that had gone on, you know, before I'd even got to the age of 13. And then there was a whole lot more that went on up until probably in my early 20s, you know, some of which I've never spoken about because it's a really difficult space to be in, being a Muslim woman. You know, like we don't just have being a woman, we have being a Muslim and what that's supposed to look like, and, you know, as a woman and conducting yourself, and, you know, and then as a revert, you have all of the changes and the transitions and the grieving our past life and everything else, and then what's appropriate and what's not, and how we speak and how we don't, and it's a lot to take on and still then show up as your authentic self. So I try my best to do that, because I think by me being honest about a lot of my experiences, not only does it allow people to see that it happens and it's been happening, but it also it also takes away the shame that I felt for a very long time of being so different, of coming from so much dysfunction, of not having, you know, an active dad all of the time. Sometimes he was active, you know, when he was well and things like that. Of coming from a broken home, of being in the criminal justice system, of, you know, not being coming from a healthy, stable upbringing. You know, there's a lot of shame around that. And there's even more shame in the Muslim community, because there's a shame culture. And I feel like somebody has to break that shame culture by just being honest about the fact that there's a lot of dysfunction, there's a lot of trauma, there's a lot of pain that's not going to go away because we sweep it under the carpet. It's not going to go away. People are suffering.
Right.
You know, they are actually suffering in silence because we're too ashamed to say that this is, you know, I was abused. Not me personally, but people that I've supported were abused by their family members. Lots of women have been abused by their family members. Lots of women were completely dismissed by, you know, their mothers and fathers. They didn't have a present, emotionally present mother or father or both. So there's these what we call mother and father wounds that now they're struggling daily to even get out of bed because of these wounds, and we're too ashamed to talk about it because it makes our family look bad or so on and so forth. But there's ways of talking about these things and there's ways of healing from these things. I've had a few instances with mum where she's not liked things that I've said online and I've had to remove things. And, you know, you have to respect people, and not everybody needs to go online and talk about how dysfunctional your family were. But she's, you know, mashallah, tabarakallah, she's very supportive generally in me speaking about these things. And I think she's seen how impactful it's been as well.
So how did you, from that background, then come to Islam? And what did Islam change for you?
Yeah.
I'd love to know.
So if we fast forward to kind of like my 20s, right? So my 20s was a very interesting time because I was a party girl, right? My life consisted of living for the moment, living for the party lifestyle. This is for a lot of non-Muslims. We work in the week, and at the weekend we go out, we party, we drink, and then we go home. This is how life is. So I was also from a young age as well. I think this was one of my outlets. I used to do poetry. So I used to write songs. So from very, very early on, probably about 7, 6 maybe, I'd be writing my little songs and my little poems. And I had, I don't know if you remember the Talk Boy. Do you remember those? I don't know. So it's like this little silver machine with a little mic thing. I've always been on the mic.
Okay.
So it's little, and you can record your voice.
Okay.
And I was on that from as early as I can remember, and also had a TV one as well where you could film, but it connected to the television, and it was black and white. So that was back in the day. So I started. So I used to. I don't know if you know what this is, but I used to like MC.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, you know, I don't know how like well versed in these things you are. I don't want to like
how much
say
of a cushioned life I've had. Yeah, I know what MC is.
Yeah, so I used to I was MCing from like a young sort of age as well. I can't even remember when I started MCing, and then I went on to sort of like grime, right? So like particular, and then I started to go into rap, right? So my plan was, this was my genuine, honest plan. I was going to start connecting with all of my London peeps. I was very well connected in the sort of street life culture, right? And the raving culture. So I was like, yeah, I'm gonna start taking this seriously, and I'm going to connect with all the people that I know, and I'm gonna actually become famous from this. And I don't know how much you know about that industry, but now it wasn't as mainstream as it is now. It's very much like mainstream now, not to go into kind of all of that, but I really believed that was going to happen, but Allah had a different plan for me. And I'd written 16 bar, I'd written a verse that was ready to go on a particular. His two brothers had they were like South London rappers, right? So I was like, yeah, they were going to do a remix. I'd written my 16 bar to go on this. And I had a conversation with one of them, which was really random. And I don't know, it was almost like I woke up and we were on the phone and he was talking about Christianity and Islam. And I said, say that again? And he was comparing the two. So I'm somebody that's never, I've grown up in a white area now, right? I've moved out of London. So yeah, there was a few Muslims or whatever, but that wasn't really that important when we were younger. Nobody was really talking about religion, or I don't even think I noticed Muslims, or I was brought up very liberal, very open-minded. So it wasn't even a focus of mine. So he started talking about the comparison between Christianity and Islam. Don't know why, but something made sense about that. So I asked him.
And he's a Muslim?
He's a Muslim, yeah, but they're rappers, but they're Muslims, right? Yeah. So one of them was born Muslim out of the two, and one of them was revert Muslim. So this particular one, he was talking about that, and I was like, hold on, what do you mean? So, I'm lost, like this is new to me. So he kind of went on, but there was a light bulb that switched on at that point. And then I started questioning the other one. And it was really odd. Now, obviously, they started to recognize that, she may take her. She sounds like she's, but I didn't know that this process is going on. So he would do things like come and meet me in like outside places and things like that. Obviously, they're trying to set the boundaries between men and women now, right? But I don't know this. So we'd like randomly meet up and I'd ask questions, started getting into kind of like things that I'd read about the tortures of the grave. I've grown up in a non-religious household. My mum, she was Catholic, and she said that she felt like religion was forced on her, so she was not going to force it on us. So she just didn't tell us anything about it. So I learnt what I learnt, the Lord's Prayer and a couple of these things, but I would say I was an atheist because I didn't grow up knowing God or having any of that. So, yeah, it was the tortures of the grave, and I was like, hold on a minute.
Where were you reading about the tortures of the grave?
Just online.
Okay.
Yeah, just online, just on a search engine. And then because back then there wasn't much on YouTube. There was no Mufti Menk. There was no Instagram or TikTok, or there probably
what is this, the 90s or
no.
Sorry, noughties.
No, it wasn't that far. This was like 2010.
Okay.
Yeah. So there wasn't a lot. I mean, it sounds, maybe there was. But I didn't know anything about.
It wasn't in your.
Yeah, I don't think there was Instagram back then though. Okay. 2010.
I'm not sure.
15 years ago. But there wasn't like I don't even think I was on. I think I was on Facebook, where it was just very much like updating how you feel and just come off of MySpace. So when I started reading about torture of the grave, that for me was a major turning point, because I was like, I thought you just die and that's it. That was my true belief. Like when you die, khalas,
the end.
That's it. It's the end. So for some reason, that put a lot of fear inside me. And then in my mind, I was like, okay, I didn't even know what a shahada was, but I need to become Muslim, but I don't know how. And the brother had said, just go to a mosque. I was thinking, go to a mosque? Like, I've never been to a mosque. I don't even know what a mosque looks like. I know it sounds very ignorant, but I was a very ignorant individual, like in terms of, I thought I knew everything about whatever I needed to know about, and nobody could realistically tell me anything about anything. So this was a very mind expanding process for me. Anyway, what had happened in between that is my dad, who had lived a particular lifestyle, won't go into that, but he lived a particular lifestyle, and I got a phone call. We weren't in contact. We was in and out of contact for pretty much my whole life anyway. I think he kicked me out of his house because he said I stole money. So there was a lot of that had happened. So we weren't in contact. I got a phone call, and the person, a guy that I know, was like, look, you've got to go down to your dad's flat. So I was just annoyed because I believed that it was something to do with his lifestyle and the police and this and that. So I wasn't really too happy about having to go down there. I wasn't driving. I was still quite young. So I went all the way down. When I got down there was police tape outside, which again, I'm relating it to him being arrested. Tried to get in, and they said to me, you can't go in. And I was like, what do you mean? Like, I can't go in? I'm his daughter. So I thought, oh, no, that's... And they went, he's been stabbed. Wow. So I don't know, like it was a really strange moment because I wasn't in contact with him. Even though like he had his flaws and he was the way he was, it's still one of those things that you just never expect to hear, you know? And I tried to call his phone and someone answered it. And that was, I can't explain it. It was a very, I don't know. It's really because he died obviously, and you know, Allah have mercy on him. It was it's kind of taking me back there a bit now. Oh. You know, it's kind of
so that was the time when he passed.
No, he didn't.
He recovered from that.
He recovered from it, and this is the thing. But I just can't. It's almost like it's unbelievable. I just can't believe that it happened. But when I called his phone, because I didn't believe it, it was like I went into shock and I didn't believe it. And I called his phone, and somebody answered it and was like, "We've got your dad's phone." So that in itself was like a very, I can't explain it. It's hard to put it into words what it's like to kind of hear that your dad's been stabbed, because automatically, like you said, I thought he was dead. Like that's where your brain goes. And I went down to the hospital, and he'd been stabbed 8 times. Wow. And one of the times was in his heart, and they said, oh, okay, we've bandaged him up, it's all good. And at 12 o'clock, there was a doctor that came on that said, hold a minute, you haven't checked his heart. He's been stabbed in the chest area. Why have you not checked his heart? And alhamdulillah, they did. He was bleeding internally, so he would have internally bled to death. Alhamdulillah, it's such a bittersweet moment, because for me in that moment, I went home and I cried and cried and cried. And it's so weird, because it's like you love someone because you're so attached to them. Like it's your dad.
Of course.
And even like, I think because he did die, and, you know, I drove past his area recently, like not yesterday, the day before. And it's such a deep connection that's like you can't get rid of. But then at the same time, there was so much pain and suffering within his life, within my life. And so when he didn't die, and, you know, I came home and I had this Quran that this uncle had given me, and he said, oh, you know, Allah says be and it is, just ask Allah for anything, you know. And I did. I literally was didn't know where to put my hands or how to, and I just said, Allah, like, take the pain away. And I was like really crying, and there was a lot of emotion, and I just felt like this warm feeling enter into my body, and like kind of like engulfed me and like touched my heart, and kind of felt like a hug, but also like my heart lifted. And, you know, subhanAllah, for me, that was I feel Iman entering my body. Wow. But within, I think probably less than a year, my dad went back into prison because he spent most of, like, about half my life in prison. He went back into prison and he took his shahada in prison.
Wow.
So it's bittersweet in that it was a very painful and very difficult time, but it's sweet in the fact that I always think, like, if he'd have died then, if that was what you asked, like his death, the end, where would I be? You know, would he have been buried as a Muslim, you know, 4 years ago? Would I now be a Muslim? Because that would have completely changed things. So alhamdulillah, it's
alhamdulillah, may Allah have mercy on him.
Ameen, ameen.
What kind of, when you look back, what kind of effect does a father who's there, so it's not like an absent father, right?
Yeah.
Completely absent.
Yeah.
A father who's there but has a troubled life, if you like, ups and downs. What effect does that have on a girl?
Yeah. I think it's different for everyone, but ultimately the father wound can be it can come about whether the dad's there but not emotionally present, whether he's, you know, abusive, whether he's completely absent. It just depends on, it depends on a few factors, but ultimately for me, the father wound was how I saw myself, particularly in relation to relationships and what I have been willing to accept.
From men, you mean?
From men, yeah. What I've been willing to accept from men, because your dad builds up your sense of self, your sense of not just self-worth, but your sense of, I know who I am, I know my worth, I know where I sit in the world. If you don't have that, it doesn't necessarily matter entirely. It depends. It doesn't entirely matter if he's not, say for example, he's not there at all. So it's complicated in a sense of, if he's not there at all, sometimes it could be better, even though the father wound's there, but sometimes it can be better because it's, okay, I just know this is what it is. You would still have a father wound, but then sometimes the fact of him being in and out, up and down, it becomes extremely complicated now, because it's like you have a standard of, this is what my dad done, but it's coupled and mixed up with, but my dad actually abused me in you know, mentally, verbally, psychologically, due to his own mental health. So that has impacted my brain and my mind in how I see myself and how I relate to men. So the work that I've had to do within myself is understanding how the abuse affected me, understanding how I see myself, understanding my own sense of self in the world. It's a lot of work.
Were there any like positive memories you have of your dad?
Yeah, like we used to go raving together. So we used to party together. He was somebody that you would buy bottles of champagne, and you know, they want to glamorize it, but at the time of being a non-Muslim, you know, it was a lot of fun. But again, it's that in the morning he may have an episode, and he may go into, you know, a rant for maybe 3 or 4 hours, and then in the evening we go out, we have fun. So it goes back to that, yeah, that's great and everything, but I always say this as well, when it comes to like positive memories. They're not the ones that you have to recover from. So I can look back and say, yeah, it was great that my dad used to spoil me and pay for me to get my nails and hair done all the time and go out. And that's something I can express, but I think it's important because we do that as human beings. We sweep our own feelings under the carpet and we make light of things. It's a natural human response to do that. And then we carry a lot of pain and we carry a lot of difficulty inside. And what it does is it stops us from healing.
Yeah, I think the thing that I'm sort of thinking about is, you know, like maybe not to that extreme, but people out there have got flawed parents. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And even flawed fathers, for example. And I think one thing that we don't know, and we probably need to look into, is what effect, despite the negatives, what effect just having a father has on us. Do you know what I mean? That we take for granted.
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. What would you say about that? So what would you say as a mother, as a daughter, as a wife right now? What would you say about that?
I think
Hearing what I'm saying.
I haven't looked at the research in detail, but just from an experiential perspective, I think fathers are like this psychological safety net that you don't even know was there, you know? So, regardless of how flawed they are.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying, you know, what you said about maybe a father not being there, there might be, I've forgotten exactly how you said it, but I would say having even a flawed father might have given you, or might give a person, a strength and a resilience that they wouldn't have with an absent father. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
Because so many people, when they talk about absent fathers, they feel it's another type of trauma, right? Which is just having a hold, you know? So that's why it's interesting to me that you had those fun experiences as well as, and I think maybe people out there might not have those experiences to that level, but I think we can never take for granted just a father's presence somewhere, you know?
Yeah. It's a very kind of, so when somebody's father has been emotionally absent for whatever reason, so meaning, you know, they didn't validate, they weren't able to love you and build you up and these kind of things, or they were abusive, it doesn't have, it has quite a detrimental effect. And this is why I think it's hard to kind of say, because I mean, having a dad that provides and stuff like that, but then you see those instances, and this isn't to blame and shame men, right? This isn't to talk about, you know, oh, you should have done more, because look, everybody was working with the resources that they had at the time. My dad has, the pen has been lifted in a lot of instances for him.
Right.
Allah have mercy on him, because he's schizophrenic, you know, like we're talking severe paranoid schizophrenic. It's a severe mental health issue.
Absolutely.
He could not help that. And even when he was normal and we were having a good time, he didn't have the same level as, he didn't have that empathy and things like that a lot of, you know, and a lot of men and women struggle with empathy. Like it's one of those human emotions that has to be sometimes built, and it goes back to childhood. But it's one of those things that not having that role active in your life can and does have a really difficult effect on a female's makeup. So yes, people can say, you know, that, yeah, oh, my dad was there, but I still feel like that and like, again, it's not about shaming the men. It's not about saying, you know, it's irrelevant that he's there. But again, the research is on the stress of the mother.
Right.
So how supported is she? How, you know, how able is she to look after the children? And we
Fear
see
and all that stress.
Yes. And we see a lot of women that are in survival and how, you know, negatively that impacts the children and things like that. So it's looking at it as a family as a whole. And then it's, you might be showing up and, you know, you might have got married and you're showing up and, you know, mashallah, tabarakallah, it looks very good. But then these are the women that are coming to me that are saying, you know, I don't want to feel like I'm talking bad about my parents, but I am really struggling. So it's subjective in some ways, but then a lot of research has been done to show, like I said, the stress on the mother, the absent father, the emotionally absent father, and how that affects a woman who is now an adult, who now goes out into, and mine is an extreme in a sense of not everybody has a mentally unwell father, but not in a sense of the emotional absence that comes with that. And this is what I talk about a lot. It's childhood emotional neglect, CEN, which can come from the mother or the father's side. And again, it's not about it being that they did something wrong. It's about how it's impacted you, how it's affected you, how you now show up in the world. And do you need support with that? Do you need to heal through those wounds, we call them? It's the same way, like if I walk past and I cut you, you're now walking around with an open wound, just to kind of put a plaster on it and say, oh, at least you had a dad. At least you had someone there. You know, it's kind of, it can be a little bit like, well, that's going to bleed through that, you know. And
I'll tell you what I'm thinking of as you're speaking is probably thinking about the Asian community, okay? And how there's a kind of a mismatch between our generation who was brought up in the West, if you like, and our expectation of love, emotion, you know, like what emotional availability means, and what the previous generations, especially those who were immigrants, their kind of definition was, you know, or their way of doing it was, you know. And sometimes I do worry when I meet people that just because that generation didn't express love, for example, in the same way as maybe we do now with our kids or with our spouses, you know, like, for example, the typical Asian father is not going to say, I love you. Okay, especially immigrant father, right? Those words, I love you, are not really always part of our vocabulary. Yeah. But they will show love for them, providing for you, being there for you, talking to you nicely, you know, all of that. That is their version of love. Whereas now, with our generation, we're like, actually saying the words is very important to us, right? And our kids hearing it. So I'm just sort of like thinking, I guess, like what the line is between how we, growing up in the West, have interpreted our parents, you know, and the mismatch between that and their intent. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, but it's not a mismatch, because intent and impact are two different things. So you could have, you know, not intended to harm someone by your words, for example.
Right.
But the impact.
But the way they took it, for example, has harmed it.
Or the psychological impact of you know, the developmental impact of a child, and now them growing up and they're now depressed, or they're now, you know, anxious, or they struggle to manage their emotions, or they're completely disassociated. And these things lead to, then they could lead to suicide, they could lead to severe depression, because it's unresolved. So we're not going to say that every single time and every single instance that, you know, a dad or mum didn't show a bit of love or support, that they're traumatized. That's not
Yeah.
you know, and I get where you're going with that, because
with your example,
Yeah.
it feels easy to understand.
Yeah.
Right. But I'm now thinking about the average person.
yes,
Who sometimes might, because in the culture that we live in,
yeah,
which is quite individualistic,
yeah,
which does encourage us to sort of, well, I would say indulge in victimhood, right? Right. I was reading this thing. About millennials, right?
Right, yeah,
Like,
yeah.
What is each generation known for, right?
yeah,
And the millennials, which are basically people born after about 82 onwards,
right.
right? Are
So that's me. I'm in that.
oh, okay, sorry.
Hold on, wait.
I don't
82
want to. I'm not trying to offend you here.
I'm
Apparently,
85. Am I? Is that?
yeah,
82?
that's a
yeah.
millennial. I'm just before a millennial, so I get away with this one. I'm sure there's other characteristics of people born in late 70s. But yeah, apparently for millennials, it's victimhood.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
the only reason why I'm mentioning that is because the Western culture of being very
Yeah.
myself focused,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Is very different to, being brought up in India or somewhere else, which the immigrant experience, and how almost like they had to push their emotions down, and the traumas, if you like, or deal with them, as a matter of urgency in order to step up for whatever.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's a different mentality, and maybe it's also that our generation, I'm talking about like our generation of children of immigrants, had the luxury of, not having to worry about certain, more basic things. And so...
Well, they were in survival, though. This is the thing. Yeah. So this is the thing that we're missing. We're missing the fact that slavery and oppression in multiple different, whether it's Asian, whether it's Black, these things are not that far away, so this is the aftermath of a lot of that, where we have to push it down, we have to get on with it. But what we're seeing now, I believe, is not so much victimhood, and I do understand that people can get very caught up in the individualistic mindset, but we're Muslims, so that should not be the case. Like this whole idea of kind of going no contact with your mum or your dad, and this is not allowed. We have to.
But also like reading into every little flaw that we have as being something that our parents gave us. You know what I mean? Like blaming.
Yeah, but this is the difference between understanding how it's impacted you. And like I said, the kind of the intent and impact. We can understand that they had a hard time, and that they, whether they came over, most of our parents,
or they had blind spots sometimes.
Yeah, and that's exactly what it is. And this is why I always say this is not about blame. And it's the intention, and the reality was in most cases survival. So there wasn't a time to be emotionally connected and things like that. But we have to acknowledge that it has had an impact on a lot of people's mental health. Yeah. And this is where it's trauma, because people are not just having a bad day, they're having a bad life. And I was one of those people that, I've had years of my own therapy and things like that. And it affected my relationships with men, as I've said. And that's not okay, because I don't have any children, but then it goes on to affect the children. And now I'm supporting my generation's children who are honestly really it's a really, if you think our generation are bad, look at the young, the sort of Gen Zs or whatever's you want to call them. They are in a really difficult place because their parents, me and my sort of age group, haven't dealt with their stuff, from their parents' stuff, and now they're passing it down. So it really is important for us to look at what is the impact here
And deal with it.
and deal with it. Not
Yeah.
what was the, you know, not that the intention was bad and not cut off your family.
Yeah.
Absolutely not.
Because
Actually,
that's what I'm afraid of. Because
Yeah,
I have
yeah.
seen people do that.
yeah, but that's where, and this is why it was so important for me to, because I had this whole rant on social media yesterday about being like the only person of color and the only Muslim in a group therapy training that I'm doing, and you know it is a white middle class industry, you know, and it's starting to change now, but this is why it's important it was so important for me because our foundation isn't Western psychology, it's
Right.
the Quran and the Sunnah.
Right.
So that's where it starts. So everything has to be in line with the Quran and Sunnah. So we can't cut off our parents and we can't have animosity because Allah says in the Quran that we have to keep the ties of kinship. And in fact, it's a major sin. So that goes above, you know, how we feel inside. But does it mean that we can't? Does it mean that we don't deal with those feelings? Because what happens
To heal
is
ourselves.
to heal ourselves.
Yeah.
Because what happens is, me and my mum, hope she doesn't kill me for saying this, we had a bad relationship. Like our relationship was not what you see it as today. Like, and this is why I love the Mufti Menk video because it highlights, look how far we've come. We did not get along. We clashed a lot. I didn't speak to my mum for a few years before I was Muslim, by the way. And it has been very difficult. And now we've got to a point where we get on really well. And this is what the intention should be. It's heal, forgive, and move forward. So, and that's
very healthy.
Yeah. That's very healthy. But we always keep in mind, and that's why I thought it was important as I was going back to, for me as a Muslim to represent that, because reverts, a lot of us, we do study. You know, we had to, because how else would we have known what we're doing? And I found like a lot of my clients, a lot of them are born Muslim, a lot of them are Asian. They have not necessarily studied and understood in the same way that I have, because I've understood, you know, with the fiqh and the tafsir of this and that. It's been understood in a different way because I've had to learn it. So some of what I do is kind of teaching like the basic understanding of the kinship and, you know, the way that we have to be as Muslims in our character and also in our, not saying that I'm perfect character, but like the way that a wife should speak to a husband and things like that. It's not feminism and the Western way. Well, if he doesn't, then you cut off. No, it's so important to keep the family unit together. That's because in my head, in the back of my mind, when I'm supporting wives, I'm like, man, if I don't keep these two together, the shaitan is going to go into the sea and have a party from breaking up. So my intention isn't just to like, just, you know, if he's not meeting your needs, then there's rights and responsibilities, but also you need to take accountability, sis. How is your behavior? And so when you start to heal and you start to develop your character, if you saw me a couple of years ago sitting here, it wouldn't be the same Aysha Mercedes as it is sitting here, because I've had to learn, you know, how to communicate in a healthy way. Not that I couldn't communicate, but, you know, I've had to learn a lot about my character. I've had to unlearn a lot of unhealthy behaviors. And when you heal, like I said, going back to the husband and wife, and you don't get so triggered, because the marital relationship is the biggest trigger, because it takes us back to our childhood. When you start to heal that and you somatically take away that kind of that what causes that trigger, because that's what it is, it's the body and not the mind, contrary to what we believe, you then have healthier relationships with your husband and wife do. You know, obviously I'm supporting women, you know, with the children, with your mum and your dad.
Yeah.
It's supposed to enhance the relationship, not blame them, no contact, get out of here. This is the way that I want to do things. This individualistic.
It's about taking responsibility for your own feelings and happiness.
Yes, yeah. Because like you said, you can't now sit down and blame, oh, my mum and my dad. Yes, they may have caused you some pain. We can accept that. We can work through that. And then we need to move on from that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Jazakallah khairan for that. I'm going to shift a little bit. What advice would you give to people from Muslim backgrounds who were born into Muslim families about how they should help reverts, or what should they be doing? What should we be doing for reverts in Ramadan, Eid time?
Yeah. This is a funny question because I actually did a talk about this the other day. And the first thing that came to mind for me was that I didn't used to enjoy Ramadan as a revert. And in the culture that I was in, the revert culture, we kind of felt like there was no space to be real with how you felt. So I just thought, oh, everyone else is enjoying it and I'm not. There's something wrong with my Islam. But actually, if you think about transitioning from party girl, from live YOLO life, do what you like, to then having to refrain from food and drink. And I think my first Ramadan was about, I don't know, around 6 months in. So I'm still very much, so I'm very much like, and it was long hours. I think the fast was breaking at like 9:30. So not your sort of 5:30, 6 o'clock that we have now. So that's a long time, right? So I think the first thing to remember is that you may not get it as a revert. You may not really understand the whole, how it works and why you're fasting and everything else. And it's because it's a spiritual process. It's not a read a book. Yep, okay, I'm fasting for the sake of Allah. Somebody said yesterday, I think it was Raheem Jung, about when he's a revert and when he read the Quran, and Allah says in the Quran that we have been created to worship him. Right. And he said he didn't understand that for years. He did not understand, why would Allah create us to worship him? It didn't make sense.
You mean the verse, وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ? We did not create the jinn and the mankind except to worship me.
Yes. Yes. And he said he didn't understand that for years. Now, for a revert, fasting for the sake of Allah, and everybody around is getting excited, and you're like, this is just hard. I don't get this. And it's a spiritual connection because it took me years to actually find the solace, to find the spiritual growth and energy in fasting Ramadan, because I just didn't understand it. Coming from somebody that wasn't religious and never had fasted and had never had to refrain from anything, I didn't connect the dots. And that's the thing. Sometimes reading a verse in the Quran doesn't quite make sense. And then all of a sudden one day it's like, I've got it. So I think just for anyone that's new to Islam or kind of feeling like they're coming back to Allah, it doesn't all have to make sense, but eventually it will. I think that's probably the best piece of advice that I would give, because everything's not going to make sense straight away or even years and years in. Sometimes it's a bit of a blur. Sometimes that connection with Allah just isn't there and you're kind of just doing. But it's important to keep doing, because eventually one day, like Allah says, if you go to him walking, he'll come to you running. And that's what it is. If you just keep doing it. I've been in a really terrible state before when I first reverted within the first couple of years. And I remember literally going into Ramadan and thinking, what's the point? But I just said to Allah, I said, you know what, Allah, I'm going to try. I'm going to give you this 10% because that's all I really had. And by the end of that Ramadan, alhamdulillah, I had rectified my heart. And yeah, and it reset me. It reset me. And that was just based off of me just trying.
Push through it.
Just pushing through it.
Especially when it's difficult.
Yeah.
And then eventually you have a breakthrough or things become easier.
Yeah, because we have so many, like trying to control the nafs. There's so much of that when you have lived a life where there is no control of the nafs, and it can take many, many years. And also I mentioned this earlier, didn't I, about grieving the past life that you had, the past friends that you used to associate with, the past freedom in a sense that you had. These are things people don't talk about.
Yeah.
Imagine having a completely different life, having to let go of all those friends and things like that. Yes, you're giving them up for the sake of Allah, and Allah does replace you with better. I've had that experience, but it doesn't happen straight away.
Right.
It could be many, many years that you still battle with your desires. You still battle with, I still want to be able to rap. I'm not going to be a Muslim rapper, you know? I still want to be able to mix with certain old friends, but they're not good for my heart. And every time I'm around them, I come away feeling guilty, or, I feel disconnected from my Lord. So I'm not going to do that. And I hope that by eventually leaving these things for the sake of Allah, I will start to, and it has happened for me, and I've seen it happen for many of my friends. Eventually you just start to forget about all that stuff and really embrace the new stuff, and it's just like, it's part of my life now, alhamdulillah.
And how important must it be to surround yourself with people who strengthen you, right? Like Muslims who strengthen you.
So important. I always think of the hadith about the musk seller, and like, for me, I'm so like connected to myself now, and so like almost like in a kind of weird like way now, but it literally for me feels like when I've been around certain good companions and I come away from them, like I literally feel energized.
Yeah.
And I feel, my heart feels not always like energized, but just like at peace. And I think that we have to get a bit better with noticing how we feel around different people. And because that's one of the things that I had to troubleshoot with my heart. And I had to let go of certain things and certain environments that I knew that had an effect on my heart. And in the beginning, you don't notice these things because you're just used to just going with the flow and everything else. But a Muslim's not one that goes with the flow. A Muslim's one that looks at their heart, looks at their state, and is like, look, I need to make sure, because then what can happen is when you go down, I've seen people go down and they don't come back up again. It can get like that. I've seen people go off and they haven't come back. They haven't been able to come back. So we have to catch our hearts and know what is good for us and what is not good for us. And probably the main thing in this day and age is your friends.
Yeah.
If you're putting yourself around friends that don't remind you of Allah, your heart is going to start to, your nafs, your desires are going to start to lean towards those worldly things and the things that only you and Allah know you desire, right? Everybody has them.
Yeah.
But the more you put yourself around companions that remind you of Allah, like those sellers of musk that you come away from and you feel really spiritually uplifted.
It's rubbed off on you.
It's rubbed off on you.
Yeah.
And the thing is, you don't notice it in the moment, which is why I said you need to make sure you're aware of it. And it goes back to, and these are the things that really help with when it comes to merging these things within my program, because sometimes we think it's therapy or Islam, but it's not. Because if you are somebody that is struggling with your mental health and you're not praying, or you're disconnected from Allah, or you don't have any good companions, it's gonna affect your mental health. Believe me, it really does. So they're interconnected, and they're very gentle changes that a lot of people just need to make, little tweaks and things like that. Even like the whole gratitude thing. I know it's so cliche and it's so obvious that we should be grateful. And every time I say it, I almost feel like I'm saying it like as it's not a real thing. But just changing that mindset to kind of thinking about, which of the favors of your Lord will you deny? Seriously, ask yourself that question and train yourself, because this is what it is. It's training, troubleshooting yourself to look for the good and not for the bad. This Western culture is so moany and miserable, and forget about that. We're Muslims. We need to be grateful. We need to.
And I think some of us we do have. I heard this psychiatrist talking about automatic negative thoughts.
Yeah,
we do. There are things that just pop into our heads.
Yeah.
And you can either choose to dwell and nurture those
Yeah,
thoughts,
yeah,
or you can
exactly.
just chuck them out and be like, no,
Yeah.
that's just my brain.
Yeah.
That's just my, attention giving me ideas that aren't necessarily, or shaitan,
Yeah,
giving me
yeah.
ideas and thoughts
Shaitan,
that,
and it's laziness. We just want everything to just come to us in such a way that we can just go along with ease. That's not how the dunya is created. It's created for us to be tested. So we've got to have our armor ready, spiritual armor, psychological armor, physical armor, and
Absolutely.
then, all of the du'as and it's so many things that
tools.
yeah. And this is it. And I think we can never stop learning about ourselves. We can never stop learning about the deen and things like that. But a good place to start is always to just slow it down a bit and just think, what little changes can I make? Like you said, instead of thinking negatively, why don't I, look at how, good that thought is for me, or maybe swap that thought out for gratitude. And it does take training. It doesn't just happen overnight.
Sometimes it's habitual.
Yes.
Some people,
absolutely.
Because I was looking at personality differences and things.
Yeah.
Some people do have a personality that leans towards positivity. It's just the way they're hardwired,
I would
optimism
argue though, I would argue that because your personality, I don't want to blame but your personality
is formed as well.
Is formed as well. So
course,
yes, there are parts of it, but again, if you have, like for example, I've got somebody I know, you've got two sisters, right? You've got one that is super positive and you've got one that's super negative. They've grown up in an environment where mum was super negative, dad was super positive because of mum's negativity. And one's adopted one side and is literally like a carbon copy of mum, and one's like a carbon copy of dad. So that can really, and because I even look at my mum and dad, my mum and dad, we used to do a lot of going out to places, zoos and parks and fun fairs. So I have that high energy from that. And also my dad was a lot of fun. We'd go raving and things like that. So I definitely can see that I've picked, my mum's advocate for anything and everything, and I can see that in me.
Right.
So I definitely think a lot of it does stem down to, and these are positive, a lot of those
things that you absorb from your
things
parents.
you've absorbed. So if you've grown up in an environment that's negative and stuff like that, but you have to be aware of it so you can change it. It's not just okay, that's how I grew up. But you don't benefit from that.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely think there's an element of nature and nurture in
That's it.
every single one of us. So what about lastly your advice for Muslims out there in how to support new Muslims and reverts during Ramadan and Eid?
Yeah.
Like what do you wish people knew?
Yeah. I wish people that are born Muslim understood how much they take for granted having Muslim family. Because yes, it can be, I know there's a lot of fitna. I know I support a lot of born Muslims, and I see that it can be there's a lot that goes on and it's not as rosy as it looks. But during times like Ramadan and Eid, I see how beautiful it is. I go round to Naima's mums with the whole family and things like that, which is beautiful. And they are honestly the definition of what it means to really look after the reverts. Like, may Allah bless them and increase them in this life and the next. So yeah, I think I say this, but I don't know how impactful it's going to be, that opening up your home to reverts. Because look,
beyond your own family, go beyond your own family.
Yeah. And I know some people do try. I have an iftar. We're in the third year, which is it's not a revert iftar. We call it a community iftar, because actually there are born Muslims as well that don't have any family or estranged from their family, or it's not just reverts that are alone.
Of course.
And so we all end up kind of finding each other because we are the ones that don't have the family. And just understanding that when we left our old life behind, we left behind our festivals. We left behind our celebrations, our family gatherings for the sake of Allah. And yes, He's replaced it with Iman, but it still was a grieving point for us that you guys can't understand because you didn't experience that.
Right.
But it's just having a little bit more appreciation for the fact that you do have that. And then if you can extend, to supporting reverts and you've even got Revert to Reality, Aliyah Muad, Allahumma barik, Aliyah Rayyan, but those, particularly like the Naimas and the Aliyah Muad, they're born Muslims. Yeah. They have Muslim family. So we need more of those characters that look and they see, I'm not just going to, because Naima's got like 7 children, Allahumma barik, right? And it's like,
so she could be quite selfish on Eid if she wanted to be. But she's got a lot to do.
She's got a lot to do. SubhanAllah, she's got a lot to do.
I think the thing is she's got a big heart. So you got to have a big heart. You got to...
Yeah.
I think whatever you decide is your circle of concern, it's like not just my little family, but my circle of concern is wider than that. And I think that's what she does.
Yeah.
I think Allah helps you to fulfill that, to be able to manage it.
Yeah. I heard a brother once say, a revert brother, we were talking about like reverts and that kind of conversation. And he said, we can't just be people that just, like we do our fard ayn. Okay, I done my salah. We have to be people that look at the need outside of our own family and try to, and that doesn't just mean giving sadaqah. A Muslim is one whose hand is generous, etc. But generosity comes in different forms. Generosity comes in, I am going to spend my time and my resources to, and there are a lot of people that do this, but we need more and more and more because reverts, we're isolated, including myself. I'm quite isolated where I live. There's not a massive community. There's only one mosque that's just been sort of opened up and things like that. But we need to feel welcome.
Yeah. Someone has to reach out.
Yeah, yeah.
But also I would say sometimes it's a blind spot for people, they don't know if somebody is lonely or...
Yeah.
So I would also encourage reverts to reach out and not feel embarrassed to do so, because sometimes... people, it's not that people are mean or they're not, it's just like literally a blind area for them. They don't realize.
But I feel like that's an excuse because, again, it's what are we doing for the community? You do a lot for the community, Allah Mubarak, a lot of sisters, but it's just the same people. And the heaviness of the community weighs on a couple of people, from what I can see, sisters-wise and brothers-wise. I'll give you an example. There's a sister who's a revert who has 5 or 6 children. Her husband was in a car accident, a motorbike accident, and now he's severely disabled. So she has the 6 children and she has to look after her husband. She doesn't get as much help from the social services as one would think. I have tirelessly at times asked brothers and sisters to go down and, support her and support him because he needs his own community and things like that. And we have to not just be like, oh, I didn't know. You did know some of the time. I feel like that's a bit of a cop-out at times, right? Not that you didn't know, but you should be proactively looking for where's the need, what can I, if we're talking specifically about reverts, there's one need there, there's sisters as well, that when it comes to like their cars breaking down and things like that. I'm recently divorced. I was divorced last year, and one of the things my ex-husband used to do was take my car everywhere. So when it came down to like, what do I do with the car? And things like that. And I'm not saying a brother should come running down every time my car breaks down. I do have the AA, right? But there's I'm not a single mum, but there's lots of sisters that, struggling with their kids and things like that. It wouldn't be too much. Like people are openly saying, I'm single, I'm a single mum. I haven't, like, it's that in itself. It's hard to say I'm divorced. It's hard to say I need help. It's very, very difficult to reach out for help. So I feel like sometimes kind of putting the pressure on the reverts or the single mums or whatever it is to say it, it's a lot harder than you think to actually say those words.
I appreciate that. I think what I'm trying to encourage is not to feel shy too. You know, if you can see other people are not noticing. Or, because sometimes people assume that, you know, they don't want to offend you or something. You know, like, or you look as though you've got it all sorted. And do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So don't be afraid. But you're right. Like, obviously, like, I think we have to be more proactive and have kind of empathy and at least let people know that our door is open.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that's the beautiful side of it. When, like, for example, I know that Naima's mum's door's open.
Yes.
I just go round and see her, and she's opened up her door to me, and now we have a really, you know, mashallah tabarakallah, unique bond, and it just took for her to just be like, yeah, come round. And I think that, and then I do go round, and other sisters go there and things like that, and that is because you can feel like a burden.
Yeah.
And you
I see
can
what you
feel,
mean. Yes,
and you can feel like, oh, you know, even sometimes when I go to Naima's, I feel like, oh my God, her husband, her kids, this, that, and the other. I don't want to burden her.
Yes.
But when you hear somebody say it's open, it then, not for everybody, but it then can make you feel like, oh, I am going to ask. Actually, I do need a friend. I don't want to be alone today.
Absolutely. Jazakallah khairan, Sister Aysha. Thank you so much. You've given us so much to think about.
Thank you.
Is there anything, like, finally that you'd like to say to our viewers and listeners as a final parting message?
If you need help and if you're struggling, reach out. Because, like Fatima just mentioned, we wouldn't necessarily know that you're struggling. And I'm going to continue to advocate for, you know, dysfunction in childhood and trauma and these things that have impacted us as adults. I'm going to continue to talk about that and to advocate for it and to lift the shame off of it, just so that, not just so that people join my program and people come and work with me, but so that more people can heal. More people can heal to have healthier relationships with all of the family members, but most importantly with themselves.
Jazakallah khairan, Aysha. I love the way you said my name, by the way, Fatima. Yeah, that's
Fatima.
That's how my teachers at school that's what they used to call me, Fatima. Yeah, Jazakallah khairan. Well, brothers and sisters, I hope you enjoyed that episode. If you did, make sure you like the episode. If there's anything we talked about that you'd like to comment on, that you disagree with or you agree with, please leave a comment. And inshallah, with that, I will bid you farewell. Subhanak Allahumma wa bihamdik. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa ant. Astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.